Coincidence is a pseudonym for God when he doesn't want to leave his signature. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Well Path podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Robbins. I'm so excited to get into today's episode. The topic for today is going to be about coincidences, about synchronicities, about how to play with life. But before we get into the meat of this episode, the first thing that I want to say to everybody is Xinian Kuai Le. Happy Chinese Lunar New Year. Wherever you are celebrating, I feel like this specific Lunar New Year has actually gotten a lot of attention, a lot more than I would have expected in the States. Granted, this is only my second year back for Lunar New Year in the US. But I feel like the kind of Lunar New Year astrologically, which is obviously, lines up with the Chinese zodiac, has gotten a lot of attention. And we've talked about it a little bit on this podcast as well. But just because of sort of the archetype of the year we're stepping out of and the year that we're stepping into, it's kind of a unique time. And for anyone who maybe hasn't been following along, in brief, we've just exited the year of the wood snake and we are entering the year of the fire horse. The year of the wood snake was all about shedding, letting go of old identities, letting go of old relationships and habits and patterns that really are not meant to come with us. And we're moving into a year of the fire horse, which is a year of momentum, aligned action, energy. And really, the snake year was all about shedding things that cannot keep up with where you actually are going. And a lot of us collectively, which I know anecdotally because I've talked to so many friends and so many of you guys about this, have been just experiencing this massive shedding. And the thing about a season of shedding and a season of release is that it is really uncomfortable when you've shed one skin before you've stepped into the new one. And so I feel like a lot of us have been in this sort of transitionary period where it's like, oh my gosh, all of these things are exiting stage left out of our lives and the new stuff hasn't necessarily come yet. But I want to just remind anybody and affirm for anybody who's listening to this that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. And you have to let go of things and you have to release things first before the good stuff can come in. So know that you are creating space for relationships, career opportunities, habits, ways of being that are so much more aligned with who you are and where you're going. And the fire horse year is really going to turn the volume up on visibility, on momentum, on energy. It's really, I'm feeling into this energy of like 10x, 100x. So if you have specific goals, maybe at the beginning of the regular year, new year, you set specific goals for yourself, you may want to like 10x or even 100x your perspective on what is possible for you. That's kind of the energy of the fire horse. It's really intense in a good way. So that is what we're stepping into. And today is the very first day of that new year. So I want to just congratulate everybody for making it through the shedding and just get excited for everything that's coming because it's going to be amazing. Now, I opened this episode with a quote. This is a quote that I actually heard in a book that I'm listening to on audio called Reality Transurfing. You may have heard of it. It's this massive, like 700-page book. I think it's like 24 hours long, the audiobook. I'm listening to it. It's available for free on Spotify Premium if anyone is interested. After hearing this episode, it's got tons of interesting stuff, really about like manifestation and the quantum field and our thoughts creating our reality and all the good, juicy stuff that we talk about on this podcast. And this one line in particular really stuck out to me for a couple of reasons and also seemed very timely. And I want to tell a story related to this as well. But just to reiterate, the quote was, "Coincidence is a pseudonym for God when he doesn't want to leave his signature." I could not agree with this more. Coincidence is anything but. Synchronicities and these sort of strange, maybe something happening repetitively, or, you think of somebody and they call you, or you have never heard of this specific book and you hear about the book from a friend. And then the very next day, it's like sitting on the shelf of a cafe. Things like that are not random. Okay. Life is constantly winking at us, and God and the universe and life itself is always trying to leave little breadcrumbs for us to follow to determine our next best step. And the reason why I think this topic actually goes really well with this specific moment astrologically is a lot of the times when we're in these transitionary periods, we've shed a metaphorical skin. We are getting ready to step into a new identity or a new reality. It can be very uncomfortable. And I think a lot of us can stop ourselves before we begin because it's almost like sometimes we feel this inert pressure to know how everything is going to play out until the very end in order to take that first step. When in reality, the way that life actually works is you take the next best step and then the step after appears. And you have to really work on cultivating this trust muscle that is strong enough to withhold a little bit of uncertainty, to just know that all you need to know is the next step that you're taking and trusting that God, the universe, is going to show you where to go from there. Guys, I don't know what just happened. I don't know if this is astrological or not, but literally mid-sentence, my Riverside, the site that I use to record my episodes, just crashed. That's literally never happened before, but very interesting. Anyways, growing up, my dad is a very spiritual guy, a very religious guy, and has a very strong relationship with God. And he would always say to us, coincidence? I think not. And I couldn't agree more, frankly. Again, nothing is random in this lifetime. Nothing is random. Your life is always a reflection of what is going on internally. And there is this back and forth, if you're willing to observe it and to participate in it, that God, again, God, the universe, is constantly trying to communicate with us in so many different ways. Coincidence is one of them. And if you're a longtime listener of this podcast, you'll know that especially when I was going through my kind of dark night of the soul, following this massive breakup, this kind of upheaval of my life, there were a lot of signs and synchronicities and coincidences that came up that helped to guide me to where I am right now. And a small micro example happened this past week, and I want to talk about it. It was part of the reason why this quote really stuck out when I heard it. So at some point, this must have been last week or the week before, I was talking to a friend, and he was talking to me about these 72-hour water fasts that he does once a quarter to kind of regenerate his cells and give his digestive system a break. And he used a really helpful analogy, a really interesting analogy, where he was like, imagine that you have a car and you basically leave the car running all the time overnight. You never turn the car off. What do you think is going to happen to the car? You never give it a break to turn it off and then turn it back on. And he said, our digestive systems are the same way. We were actually designed to go through these periods of fast to give your digestive system a period of time to rest and for your cells to basically clean themselves up. But in modern day society, we don't have that. And so our digestive systems never get a break. So anyway, he has this practice of, doing these quarterly 72-hour fasts. And as he's telling me about this, I'm super judgmental. I'm in my head that's crazy. That's insane. A, I could never do that. B, that sounds how could that possibly be good for you? But I'm keeping an open mind and I'm listening to him speak. And afterwards, I'm, doing my own research and looking it up. And I'm interesting. It's actually, this guy's not totally full of crap. This actually kind of makes a little bit of sense. And the science behind it, again, I'm not a scientist, but the overall science of it is during this prolonged fasting, your body goes into this process called autophagy, where your cells basically start cleaning themselves up and they start killing off the dead cells. And it's this beautiful cellular regeneration process that is accessed through a prolonged fast. So it's okay, interesting. The very next morning, I invite a friend over for breakfast. And this friend happens to be a religious friend. She's Christian, as you guys know, who are long-term listeners to the podcast as well. I'm a very spiritually curious person. I love talking to people from all different types of religions and hearing their perspective and learning from them. And so we did a little mini Bible study actually while she was over at my apartment. And I asked her what her favorite book of the Bible was. And it just so happened the passage that she starts reading from is talking about fasting. And she starts talking about these 72-hour fasts that she's done. And I'm like, this is crazy. I've never heard of somebody doing a 3-day fast before. And then back to back within a period of 18 hours, I'm having 2 different conversations with 2 different friends who don't even know each other, that are totally on different, totally different friend groups. There's no relation here, about 72-hour fasts. And I'm like, all right, I'm listening. And my rule is when something comes up like that for me back to back, even twice, definitely 3 times, but even twice, I'm like paying attention. Like I'm locked in. And she's telling me all about this and, that it was challenging for her, but like, it was a really good experience ultimately. And in the meantime, context is that for the period of like about 2 weeks leading up to that, I had just been feeling kind of off. And I pride myself on being a very high energy person in general. And I had just felt like my energy was not up to par for where I usually am for like a week and a half. And I didn't know exactly why. I had actually gone up and like spent some time at my parents' house to try to like recuperate, to thinking like, okay, maybe I just need a little bit more rest, some like R&R. And it helped, but didn't really like help a lot. And I was kind of at a loss of like, what is going on? And so as I'm listening to my one friend and then my other friend talking about the 72-hour fast, I'm like, maybe this is kind of like the detox and the reset that my body actually needs. Maybe it's a cellular issue, and maybe my sort of energy issue is actually something that could be resolved through something like this. And so my friends and I are having breakfast, and I kind of just on a whim, guys, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make this my last meal. And I want to caveat by saying I'm sharing my own personal experience with fasting. I am not a medical professional. If you decide to do a prolonged fast, you should talk to a doctor. I'm just sharing my perspective. I do know from my friend that one thing that's important leading into the fast, and he had mentioned this to me, is that for the days leading up to it, you are kind of preparing your body to go into a fasting mode by like eating less meat and maybe less volume a little bit in general. And I had kind of realized as I was eating this breakfast, I was like, oh, yeah, well, you know what? I kind of have been doing that already, because when I was up at my parents' house, my dad is a phenomenal cook and we love our red meats. So I was having like steak, filet mignon, rib roast. Like I was eating a lot and eating really well. And so naturally, when I got back to Miami after that, I was like eating less because I was like full from the weekend. So I was like, okay, I kind of have inadvertently sort of done the prep work, and it just kind of felt right. And then the third thing was I had the one conversation. The next day I had the breakfast conversation. And then I go to another friend's house. He had a couple of friends over on the beach to, hang out and chit chat. And I'm like mentioning this to a couple of my friends who have in the group who have also done these and are talking about how great it is. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Decision made. I'm starting my fast. And I started the fast in that moment. And I have to say, I had an extraordinary experience with this fast. I don't know why exactly, although I can, of course, speculate, but I honestly really didn't struggle with the fast at all. I expected to feel like super hungry, super irritable. I had a couple of small micro moments of hunger that really didn't last longer than like 15 minutes, easily went away. And for the most part, especially after like day one, I felt so amazing, so energized, so focused, and so creative. I was writing music again. I was creating content, and I just felt really spiritually tapped in. I felt very, very connected and very dialed. And yeah, I felt super focused. Like I had a mental clarity that I hadn't felt in a very long time. And it was really interesting for me. So again, there were some short periods of time where I felt like a bit fatigued, a bit lethargic, but it never really lasted. And towards the end of the fast, I started honestly feeling amazing. Like it felt like I could go on forever. Um, Obviously, I stopped after the 72 hours, but it was a really remarkable experience. And it showed me a couple of things. One, the purpose of this episode, which is coincidence is never a coincidence. And I do believe that these conversations happened for a reason and were planted for a reason, because this was just like very specifically the medicine that my body and my soul needed to kind of reset. And in retrospect, looking back, I realized like what interesting timing as well with the end of the snake year and wanting to shed things and release things. And I think actually fasting during that period of time was really significant and really helpful. And I had some really powerful meditations and sort of prayer moments during that period of time, which really like helped me feel super grounded and excited for this next chapter and this next Lunar New Year to come. And also, it was a reminder of the fact that a lot of the times, the things that we expect to be really hard may not actually be that hard. And a lot of our suffering is actually caused by expectation. And what I mean by that is, it was a unique experience where I made a last minute decision to start this fast. Had I decided 2 weeks prior that I was going to start this fast on X date, I would have had 2 weeks to work myself up in a tizzy about how challenging it was going to be and how difficult it was going to feel and all the stuff. And I wonder if I had had that time to like plant these seeds of expectation in my head, would I have struggled more? When in reality, because it was a very spontaneous last minute decision, I genuinely didn't really struggle. And it just had me kind of wondering, like, to what extent is our suffering caused by the actual experience of something versus the anticipation of the experience? And as I look back on other challenging things I've been through, it dawns on me that even if something is hard in the moment, more often than not, the time that I spend in advance of the actual event, thinking about the event, again, whether it's a difficult conversation or a challenging physical event, like whatever it is, the worry and the anticipation of how it is going to be is usually more painful than the pain of the thing itself. And I think that's an important lesson to remember, is that to the point of, your thoughts create your reality, your expectation sets the tone for how something is going to go. So, as much as you can, try to expect ease, try to expect flow, try to expect joy and expect positive things. And chances are that will show up in your reality. The other thing that this sort of situation or this anecdote reminded me of is the power of living life from a state of flow. That means rather than trying to control and plan and force all of these different things that we think are good for us at this time, and we think we should do this and we think we should do that, or being really susceptible to like other people telling you what you need to do when, if you can live from a state of surrender and flow and be observational enough to pick up on these moments when the universe and God and life is winking at you and is sort of nudging you in a specific direction, things can become so much more easeful and so much more beautiful, and you'll take so much more out of them. So, especially as we're moving into this year of the fire horse, again, year of the fire horse is all about action, but it's about aligned action. And it's about recognizing that things move a lot faster when you are listening to a larger intelligence, when you are following the path that God actually has in mind for you, that life actually has in mind for you, everything flows with so much more ease. And so, as much as you can, try to open your eyes and your ears to the messages and the input that is all around you all the time, and go with the flow. You don't need the entire map. You don't need to know exactly every single step that's going to get you to your final destination. You don't even need to know exactly what the final destination is. You just need to know the next clear step, the next clear nudge. And so if you're listening to this, take a second to just consider, is there anything in your life that is repeating to you right now? Is there something that keeps coming up? Is there a situation, a person, a book, a course, anything that has sort of made multiple appearances for you in the last couple of weeks? And if so, can you just recognize that, even if you're not ready, you don't feel prepared to take action on it right now? Can you acknowledge it and note it down? And with that, that's all I have for us today. If anyone has questions about my fasting experience or anything else that we discussed, I'm happy to go more in depth in more detail on that. So please DM me on Instagram at the.well.path. I will answer any questions that you guys have there. And if you are feeling the feels of being mid transition, moving into this year of the fire horse, and you are struggling with direction or struggling to take that next best step, I want to share that I do have a couple of spots open for one-on-one coaching. And if you want support, please reach out to me. You can book a free 15-minute clarity call with me The link for that will be in the show notes and is also in my bio on Instagram and TikTok as well. And we can chat about it. Most importantly, have the best start to the Lunar New Year. Have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing rest of your week. And I will see you guys on Monday.